One of my most favorite game franchises of the past few years has been The Witcher. It's a dark, adult fantasy tale that isn't about good or bad, just shades of worse and even worse. I had a chance to sit down with two of the creative leads at CD Projekt Red. We have Mateus, correct?
Yes.
And Marcus.
Martin, yes.
Marcus, both of them are from CD Projekt Red out there in Poland. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
So you just gave a presentation here called Schrodinger's Cat in a Mercedes, and this is about narrative and branching narrative in games. What was kind of the main idea?
The main idea was that you can implement either small-scale non-linearities, like choices and consequences. You can have bigger-scale non-linearities, like branching structures of the game that we had in The Witcher 2. And also that you can enhance those with non-linear narrative techniques. Like we gave examples of something we call replacers. So that you play a character which is not the main character of the game. For example, in The Witcher 2, I don't want to spoil it to anyone, but probably...
So if you haven't played Witcher 2, you need to play that now.
Yeah, turn it off now, yeah. Basically, we had these moments, for example, when you played as an assassin, one of the opponents of Geralt, and you relived his memories. You could see who he talked to, what were his goals, and so on. You could even fight Geralt in this replacer. And a different method we talked about was the reverse chronology. So the thing that we did in the prologue of the game, that we started at the breaking point. So when the player, when Geralt was interrogated, and he had to tell the interrogator what he did.
Now, this is something that you see quite frequently in books and definitely in film. It's not something you see as much of in games. There's been a couple of instances this year that use kind of a book ending, to frame the story. Why do you think that this is so rare to games, since it is popular in other forms of media?
In video games, making non-linear plots and non-linear narration is very costly. Also, it's very difficult to implement it, and there is always many bugs. And when you do it, you risk that your game will grow in width, not in length. When
you guys were working on Witcher 1, I mean, you guys were kind of starting out, you were doing that. I was very impressed that, a studio that took on something as sophisticated and potentially as expensive as doing that. Why did you feel that that was essential, especially because The Witcher already existed in book form in Poland?
I mean, it was very popular in Poland, and we decided to try and make a game out of it, and it had a huge potential in our opinion. The game world and the game character and the whole the universe of The Witcher. Also, we were thinking about if we should play as Geralt or maybe some other Witcher. In the end, we are playing as a Geralt because we thought that it's such a cool character, and I mean that he has so much potential, and that he's so interesting that we should probably use this character. Basically, the world was appealing to us. We saw much opportunities in it. The ideas that were in the mentioned in the books, like the shades of grey,
problems like racism.
Yeah, exactly. And combining the fantasy world with those problems that we have in the real world right now, right? So, what would happen if there was to appear a new race, like elves and humans would encounter them, it might be even bigger than the racial problems that we actually have.
Well, I mean, and also in Witcher 2, and probably one of the most stunning things I've ever seen in a game, you're given two decisions. I thought I went with the one that sounded more morally appropriate, and it caused a pogrom right there in the town with the elves. I mean, you guys seem willing to talk about things that you rarely see in video games, and I guess I'm almost wondering, does it benefit you that you guys are out in Poland and you're not sort of in the middle of, like here in the US where just games are so commercial and everything like that? Did it make it easier?
We think that video games are as important medium as movies or books, so there is no reason to avoid these problems. We we want to make serious games about serious things, and we do it.
But I believe that it's not strictly connected to the fact that we are working in Europe. I believe that US still has a huge potential for games. I mean, there are really good games that come out from US. It's not all, commercial
Right.
stuff.
No. That was a broad generalization, but it was. I think for myself and for many other U.S. gamers, especially us in the press, there was something so unique and refreshing about what happened in Witcher 1 and Witcher 2 that it really, I think just totally it felt more Eastern European.
Well, for sure we were very influenced by the Slavic culture in which we live and the Slavic legends and things like that, which are, they're alien to the U.S., I guess.
They're not as well known as, say, Nordic mythology.
So I guess this might have been really refreshing, right?
Yeah, it was. Well, back to sort of building those narratives, and as I pointed out, with the scene that causes sort of all the elves to be killed within this town, you did something interesting where it's not a good or bad choice. You really presented with choices that turn out to be like it's one form of unpleasant and another form of unpleasant. But is that trickier, or to get the player to not see it in a binary fashion?
It's always difficult to bring the choices like that, but on the other hand, in life we don't have like good and bad choices. I mean, you have, but sometimes you have, but not all the time. And life is about shades of gray. So
choosing the small.
Yes, yeah. So we are trying to make these choices and these decisions. Like, okay, so let's make the player to choose the lesser evil. So.
And we believe that we actually have made some basic assumptions about choices. That's something also we mentioned in this talk. 3 basic assumptions. Ambiguity, so that the choices are not obviously right or wrong. Unpredictability, so the thing you mentioned, you couldn't have really predicted that this would happen. And the third was weight, so that those choices really matter, that they are significant. That was very important for us because,
What's kind of the trick? Let's use Witcher 2 as an example. How do you give those choices that sense of weight?
It's important to create a world for the player, like this town with people and elves living together and cooperating. So we had to build it and then make this choice, make this decision, and to ruin it. So at first you have to build it, give the choice, and then the player can ruin it or save it, for example.
Yeah, because if it wasn't properly built up before, you might not even feel that this is really important,
And also, obviously Geralt has to be a strong character, but those characters who are impacted or presenting that choice, you really have to make them compelling. That so it isn't just kind of a game you're playing in your head. And forgive me, I'm blanking on the name of the elf in Witcher 2.
Yorveth.
Yes, I mean, he's quite a caustic figure, and then suddenly you have to make a huge choice about whether or not you're going to be spending the rest of the game with him. I mean, it's one of the more clever things I've seen. Did you worry that you could make him so unpleasant that no player would want to spend any time?
Actually we had worries like that. I mean, it's really difficult to make those characters you have to choose between in a way that you will really have a dilemma. I mean, we had some issues with Yorveth that we thought it's really easy to go overboard with what he's doing, so you will not want to go with him, right? So sure, we had such worries, but we put a lot of work into it to make it a dilemma. So to make him appealing in a way.
And you also gave them a common enemy, so it didn't make it as contentious. So you don't have to give away anything about Witcher 3, but in terms of just what you've learned, 'cause it's a huge jump from Witcher 1 to 2, just in the structure of the game. Are you looking to do something as sophisticated in a leap? I mean, it sounds like you guys are just fascinated by how you can get this player choice and how the game can branch.
In terms of storyline, we want to keep the same formula, pretty much. We want to keep the cinematic feeling, this ambiguous choices and this compelling storyline and complex storyline. But at the same time, we need to think about how to implement it in an open world, because this is the biggest challenge that we have with The Witcher 3, actually.
No rest for the weary when it comes to you guys.
Yeah. And but we're working hard on it, and we believe that it can be done, and that we can combine an open world with a compelling story. And well, I think the formula from The Witcher 2 worked out pretty well. So we're sticking to our way of doing storylines.
In the open world.
In the open, yes.
Well, all I can say is I'm very, very excited. It's a pleasure to talk to both of you. Best of luck.